Welcome once again to Literary as Feck. I am Big Fat Puff. He is.
Nicola Schiavani.
There we go. Um, and did you actually choose an Italian name that was a match for your?
Maybe. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't actually know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what if there would be one because my family name,
Well, be careful because you
O'Sheacon,
don't like to say it, do
I
you?
don't often say it
Oh,
on here, no, but O'Sheacon, which is the Gaelic version, is the Irish word for peace. In our family, speaking of of puffiness, I guess our
right.
crest, our battle logo is a big white dove with like a sprig of like whatever
All
biblical
right. Well, that's
stuff.
nice, but I don't know if that's what I want going into battle.
Marching into battle. No,
Yes.
no.
I'm imagining people with like big broad swords and about to go into the warp spasm, and you've
Yeah,
got a sign going down with this sort of thing. Yes,
exactly.
no.
Yes. Putting flowers in people's
Must,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, yes, your clan was wiped out, I believe,
Well,
right?
yeah, there's not many of us left. But anyway, so Clive, what are we here to talk about today?
Well,
This is your choice.
yes. So actually, ultimately, we're going to talk three novels
Yeah,
because we got our
because I'm an
wires
idiot. Because I'm
crossed.
an idiot, Clive.
Well, no, I think we did get our wires crossed a little bit, and I selected two books by the same author, and then you went and read a different one. So,
Yes.
so I decided to read that as well.
Hmm.
And here's one of them that I have in paperback. Each his own. And our writer today is Leonardo Sciascia,
Sciascia, yes.
which we know how to say because we looked it up.
Hmm. And he
Uh,
is from
the
the great
Italian.
nation of Sicily.
Yes, my wife's telling me to wear something
Okay.
because she thinks I look scruffy. But you can only see from here. I look fine, don't I, Nick? Tell her I look lovely.
You look, yeah, yeah. Are you not wearing pants? Is
I'm
that the
I've got trousers on, yes.
okay? All right.
Anyway, uh, without further interruption, Leonardo Sciascia, this
Gotcha.
is the
Hmm.
New York Review of Book Classics reprint. Um, Sicilian writer.
Hmm.
I'm being interrupted again. What's what's so funny? Okay, never mind. Um, Sicilian writer. Apparently, this is cracking my missus up. The Sicilian writer. Not quite sure why, but he was
Hmm.
a Sicilian writer
Yes.
from 1921 and 1989.
Hmm. And a politician
Also,
apparently as well.
huh?
A politician as well,
Yes, a
apparently.
politician and a playwright, and very highly regarded
Hmm.
Sicilian writer. Who I don't know if he's as much on people's radar today as maybe he once was. Famously, there's a quote here on the back by Gore Vidal, right? Gore Vidal was a big
Okay.
fan. What is the mafia mentality? What is the mafia? What is Sicily? When it comes to the exploration of this particular hell, Leonardo Sciascia is the perfect Virgil.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That seems fair to me.
Reminds me as well, we should probably talk a bit of Gore Vidal one day.
Hmm. And it's interesting too. I don't know, did you catch that in one of the books? Um, I think it's in oh shoot. What are they called again? These three books we did. Um, the one that I didn't read that I just read, to each his own.
I don't
Yes.
know. I
Okay.
don't know which one you didn't read.
Anyway, in that one, there's a reference to Graham Greene, and I thought,
Ah,
oh, that makes
yes.
like yeah, yeah, somebody mentions Graham Greene, and I thought, oh, that it makes sense that Leonardo Sciascia would have been reading, to my mind, Graham Greene, because in a way, he's kind of exploring a similar kind of like fatalism and just just like a real sense of like realpolitik and kind of
Well,
just. you know.
What's interesting about him is I think that he was very politically active and a bit of a commie.
Mhm.
But yes, but to your point, somehow, at least from what I've read, I don't know if his earlier work is different, but kind of avoided polemicism in a way. Right.
Other than
Right.
other than the polemics of despair, there's something
Yeah, exactly.
so Sicilian, I
Yeah.
think, about that sense of just like, what is the fucking point of trying when it's
So endemic,
so
yeah.
corrupt?
But you know what I mean? It's not as if like all the uber villains, they're all fascists and all the good guys are
No,
communists so much. I mean, there's a
not
little
at
bit,
all.
but no, it's very so that's kind of surprising that he's writing that, but at the same time, I'm guessing in his political life he must have come down on one side or the other
Mhm.
out of necessity sometimes, right?
And how dangerous must it have been to be writing basically anti-mafia books,
Yeah,
living in Sicily in the
yeah,
1960s, 50s and
yeah,
60s, like when it
yeah.
was at its most heightened, right?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, yeah, that he is considered an important writer beyond just him being a really good fucking writer. I
Yeah.
think that's what's interesting is because he's such a good writer that even though you you might not clock that nowadays, the books remain relevant, right?
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah.
and
And the
maybe it
brass
was because he
balls.
was writing, um, like you said, the kind of politics of despair beyond anything else. Maybe that's why he got away with it. You know,
Right.
maybe some mafiosa Cosa Nostra were enjoying his books as well, right? Like,
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about some of the film adaptations though, but I couldn't help but thinking as I was watching them, like these scenes filmed in Palermo, the scenes filmed in Cefalù, the places that I was in just 2 years ago, on a holiday, and thinking to myself, like at that time, you would have had to like go and basically talk to the mafia and say, yeah, so we're making some mafia movies in
mm,
Palermo, and I would imagine you would have had to have paid them off. Like, I mean, that would nothing happened in Sicily. The same as in to
right,
some degree in New York as well when they were doing The Godfather, right? A certain amount of like, that had to be
right,
dealt with.
right.
Yeah, like it just blew my mind to consider the logistics of doing a film that's anti-mafia and
Yeah.
actually filming it in Sicily.
I get the feeling there might be, as in, we'll get to it, the scenes in Day of the Owl where Lee Jacob is telling, Franco Nero that he's a man, right? Like I'm getting a feeling
Yes,
there was maybe a level of respect, right? Like
right,
regardless of which side you were on.
right.
Also, I would like to reassure all our listeners that don't worry, the entirety of this podcast will be recorded with warm feet.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah. So your feet are nice and warm, right?
They are
Yeah.
excellently warm,
Because
yes.
as we know, it makes a difference, right? The finest art is created with warm
Warm feet.
feet.
This is true.
Yeah. So in fact, it'll be so good, we might not even release it and just enjoy it ourselves, right? It's only the podcast made with cold feet that they
Hmm.
get put out there.
Into the world,
So
yes.
yes, without further ado, so we're
Okay.
talking three books, and I suppose in order of publication, and then we'll deal with the films separately, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. That seems fair.
So yeah, Il giorno della civetta, Day of the
Yep.
Owl. Um, oh yeah, To Each His Own.
Hmm.
Original, because people love to hear me maul the Italian language.
Hmm.
Ciascuno il suo.
Yep.
Why not?
I think so. Maybe.
And then todo modo, right?
Yes.
Or one way or
Oh yeah, yeah.
another. I'm
One way or
gonna
another.
get you, get you, get you, get you. So, um, hmm. And all kind of related. I should mention I've read another. I don't have it here to hand. I've read another Sciascia book, Equal Danger, which
Hmm.
is the basis for the Rossi movie Illustrious Corpses.
Hmm.
And yes, do yourself a favor, Nick. Read the book. And have you seen Illustrious Corpses, the film?
I don't know. I think maybe not.
Cadaveri Excellenti, I
Except,
guess.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think I have. Yeah.
With Lino Venturo.
Okay.
Fucking
Okay.
phenomenal
Well,
film.
I mean, Rossi's. I mean, I mean, if you want to judge this novelist, if you want to judge Sciascia by anything else, you can judge him by which directors jumped at the
Yes,
chance to
absolutely.
direct.
Yes.
Because you've got Elio Petri, you've got Damiano Damiani, you've got Rossi. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
like the cream of the crop of
Yeah.
people. Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I was thinking, for Film My Crack, maybe I'm not sure if it's on disc at all. We might want to do, because I know for the longest time you couldn't get a copy of Rossi's The Matte Affair, right?
Okay.
Um,
About Bruno, right? And
that's right.
his
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
and his fine body of work. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, yeah. Stay tuned for more of that as
Yeah.
well.
For the
Actually,
Mate affair, which is
yeah.
totally what we should be calling
Yes.
that
There
show.
we go. Brilliant. Done. Job's a good one. Yeah, so we'll start with the Day of the Owl,
David Owl, yes.
and well, so it's going to be interesting. I don't know how much I have to say about the books in because um they're so concise in a way. They're so concise.
Yeah, they all clock in at like 140 pages. They remind me
Yeah,
in that way of like of a Jim Thompson or like
right.
a like a gold medal like
Yeah,
paperback.
but there's no show-off writing really. Although and but when you do kind of pay attention, there's some. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, to get ahead of myself here, I liked all these. It is kind of spun gold, isn't it? Really,
Mm, yes, yeah.
but in a sparse way.
And I think we should get ahead of this right now and say there will be spoilers. I don't think you can talk about these books and these films without, in a way,
Right. Yes. And
um,
plus, as well, I don't know if they're books that are affected by the spoilers necessarily, because, like you said, because there's that feeling of like an inevitability or like an
yeah,
ennui or something. It's not as
yeah,
if you're like, oh, I really thought they were going to get away at the end there or solve the
right,
crime,
yeah,
or do
yeah,
you know what
no,
I mean?
no. The fatalism is like yeah, it's
Yeah.
threaded through from page one, but none of these books go to particularly happy places. Um,
No. So Day of the Owl concerns well, as all these do really. It's a sort of murder mystery,
mhm.
right? And this is the one where someone's gunned down, and they're all set in rural Sicily.
Yeah,
And this is the one with the guy who's gunned down getting on a city bus, right, at the beginning.
yes, yeah,
And then I mean, we can talk about specifics you like, and then the investigation is the basic plot,
yeah, yeah.
right?
And there's kind of there's a new younger um like a carabinieri, like a police captain who's from off
yes,
island. He's not from, and that's I think is really important. He's not from Sicily. He's from somewhere near
no, I think
to.
he is. He is from. Well, sorry, I'm getting confused between the book and the film, maybe because in the
Oh, okay, so
film
maybe okay,
he's from Palermo, but he's not from that particular area of Sicily.
right,
So,
right.
and that's the other thing that's fascinating. You get a sense of across these books, and something one day I'd really like to, because I think as non-Italians we tend to just think of Italy as Italy, right?
Hmm.
But there's such a sense of strong regional identity across
Oh,
Italy, right?
totally.
Like you
And
would,
Sicily particularly, I think,
yes,
had absolutely its own identity.
yeah.
Um,
But even, yeah, I mean, yeah, your Milano is totally different from
oh
your
yeah.
Romano, and
Yeah.
and
I'm
it's
sure the
it's
city
a
of
very
Rome breaks down street by street. I mean,
oh, I'm
it's the same.
sure,
It's
yes.
the same for Ireland. It's the same for a lot of places.
Right,
But
but I just have the sense they have a really strong, like you could offend someone by assuming they're from the wrong region.
oh
Kind
yeah, I mean, even the Italian that's spoken in Sicily is quite different. Like I think even that down to like how things are conjugated and things like that. Like
of,
it's it is its own dialect um to a large degree. Um
so
so yeah,
um
but I think it is important that like so Captain Belodi, I think, is this guy who yeah, he's from away in some way. He's from away, whether and yeah, I think maybe in the movie he's from literally off the island, but he's he's quite fastidious and he's trying to do the job, right?
And
And
importantly, I think he was in the he was a partisan during the Second
right,
World War as well, right? Whereas
yes,
a lot of the underworld figures, and especially the main one, they're clearly fascists, right?
fascists,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. Which, and again, that's a whole fascinating. I mean, the whole across these three books as well um is basically this backdrop of the, well, not the early ones, but it's encroaching the days of lead, right?
yeah, yeah. And
This
it's
period of
not,
Italian politics, which is fascinating, like really interesting to me because it's such a um, oh, it's fascinating that there was a place where there was like a political crucible in the 70s and the 60s as well, leading up to it to a certain extent, where you were like you identified as a communist, but only in so much as you were in opposition to fascism, and
yes,
also the opposite, right? Which is
yes.
which is mad to me, really,
Mhm.
that people just quite openly would identify as either a communist or a fascist.
Fascist, yes.
Um,
Oh, I feel like we're very close to being there again.
uh,
Uh, you know,
but yeah, that whole period, because it combines all our favorite things. Leftist politics when they go a bit
mhm.
weird,
Yeah,
uh, crime,
yes. Oh,
uh,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
and it's actually there's a great moment in where basically somebody mentions that like crimes that were committed under the fascist regime are still recorded as being people have criminal records for resisting the fascists, and it's still on their criminal record 20
mm,
years after the fall
yeah,
of
yeah.
Mussolini, and they're like, well, it was a crime then, so like it seems mad, right? Um,
No, it's a whole fascinating area that I have, you know, lists of books and films and
mhm.
documentaries and things that I'm planning to get to because for whatever reason I do find this period, and it's something I didn't really necessarily know about growing up, so it's a
Yeah,
relatively
no.
new um little little pool of interest for me.
And you
Um,
realize too how close, I mean, so, when this book is written, 63, I mean, like, you're, it's
what
like,
day they are? 61. I think 63
right.
is
Oh, you're right.
translation. Yeah,
61. And yeah, sorry, that's in English, 63, 61 in Italian. How close you really are. You're just a
yeah,
few
yeah,
decades out from, you know, uh, yeah,
yeah.
like
I
it's a
mean,
very much living
we're
history in recent memory.
we're 24 years away, longer from 9/11 right now.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So at the time, yeah, yeah, the readership of the book that would have been, yeah, they would have lived through that period for
Yeah,
sure.
and that was it, for us, that's a kind of far away and of course a great victory against the infidel. But anyway,
Hmm.
Day of the Owl, um, shall we quack 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 some more about it?
Nice, nice. Um, yeah, I mean, in a way, I probably will have more to say about the film when we get to the film because I think it's a fairly faithful
Yes, I
adaptation
think so. And yes,
of
when
the
we're talking
book.
about the film, it's a bit more like we can ascribe characters to actors, and yeah,
Yes,
that's what I
yeah.
said. Even though all these books are excellent, I'm not sure how much I have to say specifically about each one. More as just a body of work.
Hmm.
I think Leonardo Sciascia, I'm gonna become a bit of a completist as much as you can
In
in the
English, yeah.
English language. So just to give a little flavour of our next to each his own. Um, Never knew a true Catholic around here in my whole life, and I'm going on 92. In the course of a lifetime, some people have eaten half a salma's worth. I don't know what a salma is, but
Hmm.
assuming it's quite a big thing. Half
Hmm.
a salma's worth of wheat in the form of communion wafers. And they're the same people who are always ready to put their hand in another man's pocket or push a dying man's teeth in, or kick a healthy man in the groin.
Yep.
Uh, so, which I thought was again good example of how he gets to the point
Yes.
where
Purse and like, yeah.
yeah, laser focused X-ray
Hmm.
vision, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, we should say, I suppose that's the other thing. Yeah, he would have got into trouble as the church comes in for
Oh yeah.
as
Well, I
well.
mean, in that way, I mean, it's you know, it's hard because of the ubiquitousness of Mario Puzo, right?
Hmm.
That like it's hard to escape the shadow of the Godfather, and yet I do think what Leonardo has done is much less flowery in a way, much
Oh
less
yeah,
like
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like
oh
there's
yeah,
like
yeah. I mean, The Godfather is
it-
famously, when you read it, is quite the. I mean, it's fun, but it is
right.
quite the trashy airport paperback with whole
Yes,
sections about that weird um sex operation that someone goes to do. That's stuff
yes.
that's not in the film, right?
Yes, that's very true. But also, um, I'm thinking too, like, and even in the movie, right? Like, it has all that stuff. It has, you know, just the famous scene of him at the baptism while he's having his like the idea of the Catholicism being a veneer, right? You know, like
Yeah,
and the way that yeah, these it's not like the priests don't know who these people are, you know,
right.
right?
But I mean,
But
famously, Coppola didn't want to make The Godfather, right? Like
right.
he did kind of turn a trashy film into a kind of arty Hollywood film to a
Mhm.
certain extent, right? It's not
But
a
I
great piece of literature.
I feel like that these books and the films based on them do all of that stuff as well, but without like such broad strokes in
Yeah,
somehow yeah.
yeah. No, no, perfect little thumbnail sketches. I've got another one for you, actually. I really like this. This is just how he paints certain characters. Uh, Paolo Laurana, professor of Italian and history in the Classical Liceo in the country seat, was considered by his students to be an odd but good sort, and by the fathers of the students to be a good but odd sort. The term odd, in the judgment of both sons and fathers, was meant to denote a strangeness that did not achieve the bizarre. It was something opaque, dense, almost repressed. His strangeness, nonetheless, made his superior competence weigh more lightly on the boys, and at the same time forestalled the fathers from finding the handle that would incline him not to clemency, but to justice. He was mild to the point of timidity, to the
Mhm.
point of stammering when they appealed to him. He seemed to attach great importance to what they said, but by now it was recognized that his gentleness concealed a firm decisiveness, an unmovable judgment, that appeals that went in one ear came out the other.
Mhm.
So you kind of know exactly
Who
who
he
that is,
is.
right?
Yes, yeah.
And
And
without going into, his shoes were scuffed and he was
yeah.
wearing purple
Oh,
trousers and, like,
yeah. No, yeah, and he's a great character actually. Laurana as but so you know one thing that's interesting actually, and the two books have this in common in a way. So in Day of the Owl, part of the frustration of our lead cop is the way in which in Sicily, every murder, every crime, every political assassination, they find a way to make it about somebody being cuckolded, right?
right,
And
right,
so,
right, right.
and so therefore, we don't actually have to look at why this really happened. That this
Yeah.
was over a concrete, contract or whatever's really at the back of it, right? Oh, it's
It's like
always going to
their
be.
it's like their version of Chez La Femme, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. But funny enough, in this one, that actually does sort of turn out to be the case. Like there's because both books, in a way, begin with a murder, and then in this case, it appears as though. I mean, I think it's actually a great effective thing, right? So this one begins with there's this guy who's like the local pharmacist,
That's right.
and
He gets a death threat. Yeah.
he gets a death threat. He gets like like I was thinking this like.
But it's
If
very
you
non-specific. It's like a death threat for what you have done, and he
done,
genuinely is like, What have I done?" Like, and that's the
yeah.
it's a bit like what was that and I know that was copying something from something else, but the one that jumps immediately to mind, not a great film, but an interesting one is there. What's the film? Was it called Public Access? What was the film?
Oh, okay.
Um, what's his face? Cancelled now. Usual Suspects guy made before.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What's his name?
Oh shit. Kevin Spacey.
No,
Not Kevin
other
Spacey.
cancelled
Oh,
usual
the other
suspects.
guy.
Yeah,
That
there's
movie
so
produced a
many of
lot of
them.
people who got canceled. Yes.
Yes,
The guy who made the
X-Men.
X-Men film.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's his fucking name?
Don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, I know what you're talking about.
Anyway,
Yes.
he had his I think his first feature public access was someone oh no yeah maybe someone new in town and they like a DJ on public access radio or something and they just ask one question is what's wrong with I think the town's called Brewster. What's wrong with Brewster?
Mhm.
That's it. And he just plants the seed and then waits and then all these
Mhm.
calls come in and it just
Yeah.
snowballs, right? So yeah, there's a that kind of sense of like, well, maybe even you've done something wrong, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And also, I do like the fact that this is the era of like hand cutting out words and letters out of newspapers
Yes,
and
yes.
gluing them down
And that
and
becomes a plot point, right?
it does. But I just kept thinking to myself, like, if somebody was like trying to do that now, it'd be such a dead giveaway because nobody buys newspapers at all anymore. That like you'd be like, well, obviously it's the fucking lunatic who like still
as a subscription all the way back.
to some
Yeah.
newspaper, like. But in this case, so yeah, he gets this letter, and then he goes out hunting a few days later with a local doctor who he's friends with, and they're both assassinated. And initially, it seems as though, and for good reason, because these letters were being sent to him, that the pharmacist is the target. But as the plot, unfurls, and as so for whatever reason, Laurana, who is this like nebbish professor with a kind of a complex, and he's like a
Mm.
mommy's boy kind of a thing.
As
He
played by the magnificent Jean-Marie
well, when we
Baptiste.
yes,
Yeah.
when we talk about the movie, yes, yeah. So he gets into his head. He's going to basically do the job that the police are fumbling, right, or appear to be fumbling. He's
Right.
going to figure out who's done this, and so yeah. But this idea, but and then as it turns out later on, because initially the assumption is, oh, well, the pharmacist, he's a
Was
skeevy
having,
guy anyway. He is having an affair, so yeah, of course,
with the widow, but it comes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yes, and it does end up, but it ends up being that the doctor was also killed because of a woman and because of an affair, and yeah.
But what's interesting as well is how the focus shifts from different characters as they like as soon as a new chapter begins, you're looking at
Yes.
it from a different angle. And I think that for me anyway, you might feel differently. The thing across all three of these books, which I found fascinating, is considering they are all kind of procedurals or murder
Mm.
mysteries. All of them, I was reading them with great relish and racing through them and enjoying. But I don't think at any point did I ever give a fuck who actually did it. Like totally besides the point. I
Yes,
never
yes,
was it
and
what
because
I
you
wonder who
know
did it. I was just
the
like,
answer is Sicily,
yes, exactly, exactly.
right? That it
Which
is,
sounds like a cop out when you say it like that, but it's
but
so
no,
not because
but
he's
it's
using
so
it as a lens to investigate, right?
yeah, yeah, and it's
Um,
it's just the place is just steeped in this. Like, I mean, in Day of the Owl, right? One of the things that uh the police captain, he's just like, no one will help him. Like, no one wants to get involved for obvious reasons. Like that,
right,
if you
right.
talk to the police, if you're seen to be talking to the police, if you go up and testify, you are going to die, or your family is going to die. Like,
Yeah. It'd be
um,
fascinating actually to make like a rogues gallery of I'm sure if you looked you could find probably in almost all country you could find maybe not well some would be as good but you shouldn't necessarily but the Sciascia for that region or that country like the writer who used a kind of a more populist medium to as
mhm.
a lens to look through so I'm sure
Almost
there's a
surgically dissect.
yes murder mysteries for
Mm.
like I'm sure there's the Sciascia version, whoever's the Sciascia guy doing Scandi Noir,
Yeah, and we did, to some degree, although they're even more overtly political, but we did one of Taibo's books, right? Pablo Ignacio
yes,
Taibo, and
yes,
he is sort of the Mexican
Sciascia of
equivalent.
Mexico. Yeah, good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but in this one, so basically, yeah, and so what you're right though, it's interesting because La Rana is not the focus of the beginning of the book, and is not the
No,
focus of the end of the book,
no, no, no,
because his
no.
investigations come to a pretty
Yeah,
serious end for him, right?
but it's fascinating because in someone else's hands that could seem like really lopsided or like
Hmm.
just disjointed, or but somehow Shasha is like you
Yeah,
feel that there's this through line,
yeah,
right? Which is, but it's interesting because it does read in the same way as if you were reading like a like a page turning kind of thriller and you
mm,
wanted to know, but that's not really what it's a
no,
fascinating. I don't know quite how he does it really. And plus we're looking at it through a layer of translation. But
mm.
when we got to our last book as well, I actually switched halfway through translations just
Oh,
out of
interesting.
interest. And
Okay,
but it still worked really, really,
okay.
yeah. No, this is also great, right? I would highly
Oh, it's
recommend.
fantastic.
Just
And
looking in the book here, uh, if it has a list of, because it does have other books put out by, it doesn't have them here, because so maybe this is I feel a bunch of Shasha books have come out from the New York Review of
okay,
Book Classics, because Equal Dangers, I think, on this imprint
okay,
as well, and so yeah, making them very affordable, and they're good translations, and this one has quite a interesting introduction by
okay.
Douglas Piero as well. They all have good intros, so I'm a big fan of the
Yeah, I think I'll
New
be
York
getting
Review
it.
book. Like, we've done a few of them now, I think.
I did read mine online, and you can, if you go to archive.org, you can find older translations of all three that are still very good, very readable translations.
Yeah. Um,
But
yes, and also there you can find our next book, Todo Modo,
mm,
right? This is
yes.
from a little bit later on, 1974, I think the book is from. And this is interesting as well because it's a bit of a shift again, right? Like I
Hmm.
felt in both the translated versions I read, not only the subject matter has changed ever so slightly, but also I feel as if his writing has got ever so slightly more baroque or fanciful or
Yes,
poetic,
yes,
but
yes.
not getting in its own way. Like he
Nope.
seems to have naturally just um um like he's been trying to keep it pinned down. Oh, don't keep trying to keep, but
Right.
he can't help but become a better writer, right? Like by increments, which is kind of
Yes.
fascinating. It feels very organic.
It's funny. Something about this book made me feel I could see this taking place in Japan. This one.
Okay.
I don't know why this, but like
Yes.
a Shinto, like
That
a
hotbed of
Shinto.
Catholicism.
No, like a Shinto retreat where Japanese politicians and like movers and
Oh yeah, that
shakers
would maybe
were
work. Yeah.
meeting together in this quiet place, but it was actually for kind of more like sexual assignations and for doing dirty deals. Something about this book and the way that he comes upon this like strange, ugly kind of building that, everyone's kind of like this, yeah, this weird hotel slash
Hmm.
religious. I don't know. There's something in a way in my mind, I saw this as taking place in like some weird, yeah, like outside of Matsumoto or something like that.
Right. But in terms of like we were talking about how it's not really, you know, who done it is not the
Hmm.
point. I mean, in terms of this book,
Truly in
it's
this
just
one.
fucking way off like by the time I'd finished the book, I was like, huh? Like I've got a lot to chew on and a lot to think about, and it was
Yeah,
fascinating. But I didn't even notice it going out the picture. But clearly,
yeah.
no one's interested in
In the
solving
actual
this
murder.
crime at all.
No.
It's
Or
it's
what the motivations are
it's
exactly.
so. I don't think I've read a book quite like this before,
Right.
and it's so brief and it's so quick, and
Mm.
it's just no. It's really, really. It's a really interesting. book I'd really like. I mean, all these books are good, but this one in
Mhm.
particular, I would like to just hand it to people just as an experiment, just to see what do
Right.
you think of this, right? Because I can imagine
Right.
some people just finding it like maddening by the time they get to the end, right? But
Oh,
because
I
it's yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed it. All
oh,
the
it's
weird
fascinating. I'm
stuff.
going to read it again one day, I think.
I think so too. Like that, because there's a real strong sense of place for one thing
Yeah,
that I really
yeah,
enjoy. And then there's this dialectic conversation between the guy who runs this place and our artist,
mm,
like protagonist, right? Like their conversations are fantastic.
yeah.
Um, and then yeah, and then the police showing up and like trying to figure out who was where, who was near the guy who got killed. All that stuff is just, you
Yeah,
know.
it's almost certainly when we get to the film, it's almost like Buñuelian or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
and even on the page it is. I felt
yeah,
like I could see it in my mind as yeah, as being a kind of a surrealist like farce about
yeah. No, no,
the higher level
I'd love
politics.
to read some more Sciascia for
Hmm.
sure. And also, if there's any like good books about him as well, I'm sure it
Hmm.
must be quite interesting. Not because I'd be interested to read about him just as a writer, but of course you've got
Yes.
all the politics and stuff as well. Um,
Hmm.
plus he's a playwright, right? So I'm wondering if some of his plays might be of interest,
Yeah.
and he's been adapted quite a few times. Which, yeah, I guess we'll get to.
Yep.
Let's do the movie. Let's do the movies in chronological order of the movies then. So,
Sure.
and I've for me, they get progressively kind of more interesting. Actually, such a shame you didn't see the last one because I think you would be
Okay.
enthusing about it like I am.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing you. But I will say this actually. So,
Hmm,
um, when this was my first time actually, I think, seeing To Each His Own or whatever's the We Still Kill the Old Way. I
hmm.
don't think I'd actually seen that before. Um, but obviously there was a time in my early 20s where I was fairly obsessively working through anything that was starred Franco Nero and that had an Italian a Euro crime kind of vibe,
Hmm.
right? And I remember watching Day of the Owl and being disappointed.
Ah,
And
interesting. Because you were thinking it's going to be, yeah.
we
Well,
need a special squad.
I
Like,
wanted to talk about this a little bit actually because
you
this is
know,
interesting. For me as well. Like I didn't watch, and I'm not as an aficionado as
yes,
you are of those. So
right.
maybe that's why I took to them easier. But there is an interesting thing because I think, and now
I
I
should
think they're being.
say I was very wrong when I was
Yes,
22.
yes,
This is
you
what I
were.
want to get. I want
Yeah,
to say that right now. That's I was a fucking idiot
you were.
move
Certainly are.
for what because I wanted high crime. I wanted Enzo G. Castellari.
Exactly. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
wanted that Maurizio Merli version of
Well, that's what
Franco
I was
Nero.
going to say. I think now is the time they're getting reevaluated because people like Radiance films are putting this, and it's definitely true that there is a distinction between the more, you know, dirty Harry copy
Mm, yeah,
exploitation Italian crime of that stuff. Like,
which is still great. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong.
but no. But there's a
Yeah,
fandom for that, and there's been a
yeah,
fandom for it. You know, the people who usually crossed over from horror. They started off with
yes,
Fulci and Lenzi, and they started looking around what else these directors made. Roger
yeah.
Deodato would live like a cop, like a man, and stuff like that. And then they were like, oh, hang on, there's this whole other extra. But these kind of, I suppose you'd call them slightly classier movies or
Well, and
non-exploitation
more
movies.
like well, in this case, these are based on novels, right?
Yeah, but
There's a
they got
there's a
left
layering.
behind to a certain extent, right?
I think so too.
Yes. And now people are coming, certainly for me, like I didn't see The Day of the Owl, Illustrious Corpses, all these films. I didn't see them then because
Okay.
they weren't offered to me on the same plate, right?
Right.
But
Yes.
now I'm getting around to them, and for me, they're really, really interesting.
Yeah. So for me, I enjoyed both of the two of the three films I watched a lot, and really yeah. I mean, so Franco Nero obviously he's my Idris Elba, I guess, right? And I really at this time I was like, oh yeah, there's a reason why I have always been strongly attracted to that man. I think he's just one of those beautiful.
Well, hang on. Are we
Huge.
starting with "We Still Kill the Old Way"?
Oh, is that did that come before?
Yes,
I didn't realize.
yes,
Oh, okay, never mind.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
let's ignore that. So we still kill the old way. So let's talk about El Chuncho then, because
Right.
for me that was, and I have seen Jean Maria Volonté not doing over the top scenery chewing, because obviously for most audiences outside of Italy, they know him from A Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More,
Yeah, and
right?
maybe Bullet for the
And
General.
if you go a little further down
Yeah.
that road, yeah, then you'll know him as, and A Bullet for the General is an incredible film,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the very, very best spaghetti westerns.
Yes, absolutely.
But to see him play this like fastidious, like the way he moves, like the hands always kind of close to the body, it's just you really realize, holy fucking shit, could that
He's
man act?
he's brilliant. Recently, I watched this and two other Elio Petri films starring him because he really shines in his Elio Petri films. Um, Investigation of a Citizen Above
Citizen Above,
Suspicion
yeah, which is amazing, yeah.
and The Working Class Goes to
That's
Heaven.
Go to Heaven, yeah.
Another great
I
film.
so
And yeah,
back then I did
Gianmaria
watch.
Valente has just like he's
Oh yeah.
so. I tell you what he is. I was thinking about this. Because someone posted somewhere on IMDb something along the lines of if Gianmaria Valente had been in like a bunch of American films, like people would talk about him more now. Like he
Yes.
would be.
Oh
And I think
yes.
that's absolutely true. Because if you can imagine Robert De Niro, but with more range,
Yes.
right?
For sure.
Then you've got Gianmaria Valente. He's so good. He's
Yeah.
so good.
And yet, and two, because he was like a hardline communist, right?
Yes, yes,
It's interesting that he could still turn in a performance um, like he does in A Few Dollars More, like like that's like in a straight action film, kind of,
mm,
and still have those layers and
yeah.
still,
Well, he's
yeah,
got a fascinating filmography as well. If you just want to follow, because he was attracted to films of a certain type to a certain, like he
yes,
made
yeah.
really interesting choices. I was looking through his filmography, and there was a whole bunch of I was like, I've never heard of this film, and I looked it up, and I was like, wow, that sounds brilliant. I had a whole
Mhm.
list of things,
Right.
usually somewhat politically
Yes.
tinged, and even films he turned down. There was a film I've never. For some people, it's considered like a masterpiece. There's a film from 1994 called L'America, which is about Albania post-revolution. I'd never heard of this film, and
Oh,
he was in the
oh,
picture for starring in it, but he didn't. He went off to do some other film. But I thought, oh, this sounds fascinating. Well, the film he did end up doing as well sounded so. I've got two films to track down.
right.
But anyway, yeah, we
You know,
still
he
kill
also
the old
has,
way.
he has a Jim Hanks as well, right? Claudio
Yes,
Camaso.
yes, yes,
Yes, which is
yes.
quite weird because he does look quite a lot like
He does. Yeah, yeah.
Jean.
Elio Petri. So yeah, like we said, Elio Petri and Volante later went on to we'll talk about one of them later, Todomodo, but certainly investigation about of a citizen of suspicion is just
Yeah, I know. It's
fantastic
incredible.
film.
Yeah.
Like so good. Um,
Hmm.
and again, one of those ones I think that the Euro crime enthusiast looking for trashier fare would maybe overlook that, right?
Right.
Um, but it's such a good film. And Working Class Goes to Heaven is really interesting as well, I think. Uh, I
Oh
really
yeah.
like Working Class Goes to Recently, you know that guy who made a Serbian film? Do you remember that was
Yep.
controversial?
Yep.
Yeah. So he recently made a film called The Working Class Goes to Hell, which
Okay.
kind of quite keen to see. I don't know what it's about, but
Interesting.
yeah. So so for me, this is Volante is great, and it's a good film, but
Hmm.
this one feels closer. So it's a bit more of a conventional film. Like it's good,
Yes.
and like you said,
Yes.
in 67, you're kind of poking these things might
Yeah.
not be a great idea,
Hmm.
and Irene Papas is kind of ideally cast as this kind
Yep.
as this widow that throws Volante kind of.
Yes. To a sweaty,
They do
neurotic
that really
cat.
well. They do it really well without being gratuitous. There's like there's like a way where they kind of
Yeah.
show his gaze, like where
Yeah.
he's look or whatever, and it's
And
just spot
and it's
on.
funny because it also comes right off the page. There's a great line. I wish I could quote it directly, but a great line about how like wherever there's like a gap between like a woman's stocking and like a black skirt and a stretch of white flesh,
Oh,
There will be a Sicilian there to
yes,
like
yes.
leer.
Well, not
Basically,
just
like
a Sicilian. There'll be hordes of people in Akihabara as well. Like,
yes.
yeah,
But I thought, yeah. Um, So yeah, no, she's great. And but it's also interesting too. Oh, and Luigi Pistilli shows up in it too, who's right at
yes.
the very beginning. He plays Mano, the pharmacist who gets shot. Um, but what's
But it's a
interesting is they do expand more like Jean-Marie Avanti's role, so he kind of is in the
yes,
entire
yeah,
film,
yeah, yeah.
which is it's a
Yeah,
choice.
but it's a good film. Don't get me wrong; it is a very good film. But it's a good film, and it's a little bit melodramatic here. It's just good. But I think Elio Petri hasn't yet become
Right.
Elio
Yes.
Petri, right? So it
Um,
feels a little bit more like a good filmmaker, but they haven't quite found their thing yet. And we saw, mm,
Fans of Sicily itself will
oh,
enjoy.
it looks amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, so the scenes shot in Palermo are incredible, and it's
yeah.
all. I mean, as soon as they walk into the park, I was like, "Oh shit, I've been in that park." And then the scenes that are shot in Laurana's hometown, right?
Mm.
That's Cefalu, which is this. Also, it's where they shot Cinema Paradiso, right?
Ah, okay.
And
A film I've never seen actually.
it's I mean, it's well worth checking out. But
And
yeah,
I've
so
always been put off. It looks really sentimental, but I'm sure it probably is a great
that's
film.
okay. That's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah, the Italians do sentiment extremely well.
I guess.
Um,
Yeah.
and so but yeah, anyway, it's a town that's literally built out and into the water. It's beautiful. And yeah, it was for me, it was just, and it's almost unchanged apparently from 1960 whenever they made this film. Like it has, you could step into it and you're like in a frame right out of the film.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so yeah,
Yeah. No, that whole part of the world immediately when you see it, it makes you think of like, yeah, the Odyssey or something, doesn't it? Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
But anyway,
Um,
we'll race through here because we're
okay,
kind of
yeah,
running
yeah,
out of time. So now, but we'll leave Petri aside because we'll come back to
yeah, yeah,
Petri.
yeah.
And we'll go to another great filmmaker, Damiano Damiani's 1967 adaptation of The Day of the Owl, right? Also known as
Mhm.
Mafia in English. Um, Now this is a fucking good film. Like
Yes,
Franco
it's
Nero as
incredible.
the Carabinieri from
Yeah.
out of town.
And
Lee J.
he's
Cobb.
great because he's a guy, he's a mat like he looks like a matinee idol, but
Uh,
he's always been more than that, I think. He
yes,
brings the
yeah.
humanity, and this is a role that you could have played it like the uptight, out of towner, like, and it could have been very one note, but there's something
No, no,
so
he's great.
human, there's something so human about Franco Nero
Yeah, no,
that he
no,
can
he's
really
fantastic.
sell his frustration and yeah.
And Lee J. Cobb is great casting. It's like,
Fucking amazing.
yeah,
I had forgotten that he was American.
yeah,
He's so, who he reminds me of? He's so Robert Mitchum in this. So like,
yes, yes.
fuck off. I don't give a fuck. Like he's so
Like, yeah, yeah.
the final scene of him just standing out there like on the balcony, like, yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
he's fucking great. And of course, you've got Claudio Cardinal, just
sim
stunning
simmering with whatever
and
she's doing.
really good as well, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, she's
yeah,
excellent.
yeah. But yeah, so we don't have time to get into it too much. But yeah, just I mean, my thing with and it was written Ugo Piro, who also wrote We Still Kill.
Okay, the
Yeah.
old way.
My main takeaway from this watching it was this is going to sound like a strange thing, but there's not many films that without them being episodic. This film, right, from the beginning to the end, it's like, oh, fucking great scene.
Yeah.
Rolls into, oh, another fucking, like,
Yes.
every scene
Yes.
is
And every
even
now and
the quiet
again,
ones that like quietly great.
yes.
And it's like,
Yes.
and it's just great scene, great scene, great scene, great scene, end. And you're like, wow, how did they do that? Like,
Yes. And not just, and occasionally a scene that's so good it's breathtaking. Like
yeah,
the scene where
well,
they
you
all
felt the
where
same, right?
oh
It's
yeah, the
just,
scene
yeah,
where they're all just sitting out there on the balcony the first
yes.
time, and then like everyone's like leaning this weird like
And the faces, man, the
Oh my
faces in it. It's
God.
like a Fellini
That
film or something.
set of actors was just
There's like
fantastic.
one guy. Did you this that one guy who kind of looks like Neville Brand or something, doesn't he?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, no. Just incredible. And then oh yeah, and then because it doesn't lean into the action that much, but then when stuff happens, like when they find like
Hmm.
the informer with the
Yes,
corpse stuck
it's
in his mouth,
really
it's
like oh,
so
like
powerful.
yeah. No, it's amazing that it's survived because really the kind of thematics of it are based, the whole kind of they always win and the house always wins kind of thing. That's
Mhm.
kind of old hat now in a way. It's
Mhm.
not like shocking like it would have been
Right.
when it was new, but it doesn't matter. The film is so just well crafted. It's still devastating and
Yes. Yes.
okay, no, but I've rarely seen a film you don't see that often, which is just on whether it's alchemy, lightning in the world by accident or by design, just fucking racing, fucking racing, fucking racing. Wow, almost all films have a lull somewhere,
Right.
right? But I was just struck by like, oh, another great scene. What the fuck? Like,
And
yeah,
then he must have made this nearly back to back, or I assume around the same time as he made A Bullet for the General, which is
it's the one he
also
made after Bullet for the General.
yeah, which is also basically a masterpiece, I think.
Yes,
One of the
yes.
very best spaghetti
Although I would
westerns.
have to go back and watch it again to see if it had yeah, I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, so the one you didn't see
Yes.
and
Okay.
you fucking
Have
really
to see
owe
apparently,
it to
yes.
yourself to see it
Okay.
is Todomodo, right, from
Okay.
1976. Um, quite different from the book.
That was my understanding from what
Yeah,
I'd what
again,
little
it's
I'd read.
more of a like a spiritual retreat for politicians.
Hmm.
There isn't that group of women from the book. And
Right.
clergy and politicians, and it basically slowly becomes increasingly more and more nightmarishly surreal, and it just ends up in a place like, wow, I didn't see like, and so gradual. Maria Volante is at the top of his game. He's
Right.
so good. I was watching this and I was thinking, fuck, this man could play. Judging by this, he could also play Togo in Manos Hands of Fate and
Right.
Criswell, I reckon. Um, but no,
Wow.
and the thing is, it's not in a way like it's difficult to class it as different strata. It's not as strong a film as Investigation
Right.
or Working Class Goes to Heaven. Maybe you could say maybe it's not a Petri classic, but
Right.
I don't know. It might be. It's border like it's
Right.
it has a cumulative, and it's just
And apparently
oh
too,
man,
so
what a
my
phenomenal film.
understanding is that Jean Maria Volonté is very specifically playing Aldo Moro,
Aldo Moro,
the
exactly. Which he
then
later
like
played. He did play Aldo Moro in the Moro Affair in the 80s,
right.
right? Yeah, so
Yes.
so this was the centre-left politician who was murdered by the Red Brigades, right?
Mhm.
And a fascinating story because there's a whole bit of conspiracy theories and stuff about that, and a fascinating figure. But the other person who's really good in it is Marcello Mastroianni is in it as well.
Okay.
He's really good. And do you know who else is in this film? Just to sell it on you because you're like,
Mhm.
'cause there's a guy in this playing the character of Voltrano, who's this guy like a kind of uh he's like fasting and flagellating and stuff.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that guy is tall, skinny, fucking long streak of piss. Who's he? And
Mhm.
it's uh I forget his second, is it Ingrassia Ciccio of Franco and Ciccio fame.
Holy shit.
And Franco's in it as well. They're both in it.
What?
Didn't expect that.
No, no, God. I've seen a couple of their films. They're awful. I've seen a Fulci directed a couple of
Yes,
theirs.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, he did a whole bunch of them. Yeah, but I didn't expect Franco to be in this film. That surprised me. And also you've got Mariangela what's her name? Mariangela Melato, right? She's also in
Oh,
Working Class
yes.
Goes to Heaven
Yes.
and
Yeah, no.
Flash Gordon and that weird
Oh, yes.
underage Jodie Foster beach party film, which we might
Right.
watch.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I mean, fuck, what a film. what a film! And it's got this
Interesting.
amazing church
I'm
organ-y kind of score. And seriously, if you don't like this film,
I'm
I
sure I
will
will
eat Werner Herzog's socks.
too. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. No, I have no doubts that I will. But it's funny. I'm just actually looking at his filmography, and if ever we have the time, that's a show worth doing. Would be the Jean Marie Volonté. I mean, I'm looking down this list, and there's nothing here that doesn't look
No,
amazing
well,
or
that's what I mean. And then
interesting.
some of them I've never heard, and then you look at and like, oh wow, okay, it's about, they're very he really chose interesting
Mm,
projects.
yeah, him.
So
I'm
anyway,
fine if
yeah,
I
Todo
would have to say
Modo,
Franco Nero. I could also, but that would just be for uh my deep, deep and abiding love for the man.
right,
But yeah, you could probably watch either of those full filmographies and have very few duds. You'd mostly
right.
have, yeah.
I don't know, you would have to watch Django Strikes Again.
That's the one. That's the one.
Anyway,
Hmm.
Leonardo Sciascia, he's
Yes,
great.
he is great,
Yeah.
and apparently, maybe even better on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to say.
Yeah,
I read all the stuff I read is great. The films are great.
yeah,
It's all great.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
name to look out for.
Hmm.
See you then.